Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees get swept in 4 games against the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. Just completely unacceptable and for so many reasons. And the way it ends is as tough as it can, as the Yankees were getting no hit by Sonny Gray into the 8th inning, actually came back against Aroldis Chapman in the 9th inning, took a 2-run lead in the top of the 10th, only for the Yankees to blow at the bottom of the 10th with Fernando Cruz blowing the save. Just a completely anemic offensive series for the Yankees. It was offensive. And really the ones that hurt the most were game 1 and 4. In terms that Cam Schlittler deserved a better fate in game 1, but the defense behind him completely failed him. In a defensive alignment we've seen previously that didn't work, that they did again, and what do you know, same bad results. But the offense was a no-show. Look, we've talked about how no Judge, no Stanton, no Grisham, how that would come back to bite at some point, and it certainly has in a major, major way. But even still, Red Sox are dealing with injuries as well. And they gave the Red Sox life. Boston looked like a dead team coming into the series, but there were some things that I realized, that I had acknowledged, and that was, run differential does tell a story. It's not everything, but I'm looking at this run differential and it didn't match up to the record. And the Red Sox had very good pitching. Their home record was 12-25, the worst home record in all of baseball. And they win all 4 games. It's just, you cannot have that happen. It reminds you of last season. It's a little bit different, but it's around the same time of the season with the Toronto Blue Jays. And we know what that did. Now, I'm not saying, look, the Red Sox in terms of them being in the divisional hunt, that's not there. The Rays are now a game ahead of the Yankees, 2 ahead on the loss side. And not for nothing, the Rays do have currently the tiebreaker. 8 games to go still, but they got a leg up. They're 4-1, so where it looked like the Yankees were heading in the right direction there, that has completely flipped around, coming off of a Rays sweep against the Diamondbacks. So this is more for the Red Sox as far as the wild card hopes. And look, the Red Sox, that lineup, it's not good, but they're not as bad as the record indicates, and the American League is so awful. They're I believe, maybe only 3 games out on the loss side of the final wildcard spot. A lot of teams to jump, but much crazier things have happened. And so that's what's frustrating is, ultimately, the Red Sox may very well miss the playoffs, right? And in fact, that's probably the more likely outcome. But here's what I can tell you. You gave them exactly what they needed. And if they were to make a run, they would absolutely point back to this series. There's not even a question about it. And look, we'll see. Because like I said, it's not even Red Sox fans would admit, that lineup is porous. It really, really is. That pitching's good. No question. That rotation, even without Garrett Crochet and a few others as well, it's good. But the Yankees made them out to be, Cy Young Award good. And so, yeah, I don't even know where to begin, but this is, Yankees dropped to 48-35. You just can't get swept. Losing 3 out of 4, that is different. Not that, okay, they're off the hook. Not that we wouldn't have talked about a lot of bad things that went down here, but the vibe of this episode would have been completely different had they held on in the 10th inning. And if you're a Red Sox fan, you're completely bummed out. That's a gut punch where, with where it was looking, again, with Sonny Gray and obviously with Chapman, going for the save, and the way they blew that game, Boston, Willie Abreu kind of at the forefront with just a couple of really bad defensive plays. That would have been just a tough one to kind of get up from. And instead, it ends up being even a more exciting and grander win than would have been otherwise. So, the Yankees, in a weak American League and whatnot, there's still, about a half a season to go. I'm not going crazy for that, but it does speak to something to me. There's something here that is problematic, and it just seems to happen at this time of year, June swoon, summer. It just seems to be, and I know that there's a lot of factors involved, right? There is, right, in terms of what does the roster look like at that time? I get it. Like, there are things you have to, take into account, but still, like, this is bad. And for an individual game, this one is up there probably with that Mets game that David Bednar blew. The Tyrone Taylor homer. This feels, in terms of, last game of a series, you had it kind of in your grasp and relinquished it. So, there were some tough Milwaukee games. There were some tough Tampa Bay Ray games along the way. But yeah, this is absolutely up there. And I thought game one was atrocious in it as well. Like, this one, I think, probably stings just a little bit more, but game one sucked. So let's get into best and worst play of the series. We have a lot to discuss and get into. And nothing to discuss on the transaction front other than I think that we are likely to see Trent Grisham and Ryan McMahon back. Actually, there is one move to talk about here, and that is the fact that JC Escarra sent down Ali Sanchez, came back from, being on paternity leave. So that was expected, and Sanchez is fine health-wise, so that was the one move that went down as it pertains to this series. Sanchez returned, I believe, heading into the Friday game. I think, yeah, it was still Escarra Thursday. I think that checks out. Let's see. Let's see here. I don't know. It might have been either. It doesn't really matter. It might have been at the start of the series. Either way, like, he didn't play until, I think, the Friday game. Again, whatever. Get into semantics here. The point is this. Your best and worst player of the series are as follows. And they're actually pretty easy when it all kind of, was all said and done. And I kind of love it in a way. My best player of the series is Paul Blackburn. Paul Blackburn pitched 3 of the 4 games and, scoreless outings in each of them. And he's actually been pitching a lot better lately. Like, he has worked his way. And it's not as if he's been pitching. Look, these were all losing situations, right? Let's just, say that right now. So he's not in a high leverage situation by any means, but you could tell he's no longer sort of like the mop-up guy, kind of like, like we more see with Ryan Yarbrough. So credit where it's due. And I think it's kind of symbolic. I think Paul Blackburn absolutely deserves, how sad is that he, and, it speaks to a 4-game sweep. Blackburn, scoreless inning on Thursday, scoreless inning on Saturday, and 2 scoreless innings on Sunday. Kind of easy. Sunday would have been actually somewhat difficult had Fernando Cruz not made it a no-brainer at the end, because I could have definitely found specifically, now there were some pitchers for sure that we could have went to, but I probably would have found someone on the offensive side. For how bad they were offensively, but I didn't even need to do that, because Fernando Cruz blows the final game of the series. Only records 1 out, gives up 3 hits, just beat around, quite frankly, against not great hitters. This somewhat came out of nowhere, but we'll discuss, we're going to get into a lot, I would say, specifically in games 1 and 4. Like, those are going to be the ones where I'm going to be giving my most insight more than anything. So, but yeah, Fernando Cruz blows it, ensures the 4-game sweep for Boston, and he is my worst player of the series. And that's unfortunate, because he had really been having a really excellent season. And right, how crazy is that? Literally last series, I gave him best player of the series against Detroit. Now you flip it around, and he's the worst. So it just reinforces the idea that the Yankees need bullpen help. Like, not just one arm, I would say 2, outside the organization. I'm not even talking LeGrande. I'm not even talking, the Clark Schmidts or Ryan Weathers, whoever. I'm saying that plus, someone that you can really count on that is not part of this organization. They really need help. Even though, the offense was absolutely more of a problem this series, but, and I think that I really hope that they are very aggressive this trade deadline. And I don't always say that. I'm not one to always say that, but I think in a weak American League, you got to make sure that you fix the deficiencies that you have. And you have some. Bullpen 100%. you can never have enough starting pitching. We know catcher. You need a shortstop, quite frankly, among other things. Like, I would not be cautious here. And even if it means getting rid of future assets, which again, I like to kind of strike that balance if possible. If you go overboard here, I would completely understand it and be for it. So anyway, let's go back to game 1. That one sucked. You have Cam Schlittler on the mound, who looked good. Schlittler pitched pretty well. Now, the one bit of good news here from a statistical side of things is that Cam Schlittler gave up zero earned runs. So the ERA drops to 1.62. So it's hard not to look at that as a Yankee fan, right? You want that ERA to stay nice and tidy. But what sucks is he picks up a loss, drops to 8-4, 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, none earned, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts. Like, it was never an easy night, but a lot of it really was due to, it wasn't like vintage Schlittler, but it was pretty damn good. And the defense, him included partially for one play we'll talk about, but it didn't cost him. Where it really went totally wrong was the 5th inning. And we'll get there because it's not just one person. Although I will say Ahmed Rosario really, that was the play that was, the Wilson Contreras, I guess we'll call it was an error. Like, that really, that opened things up completely for Boston. But again, there were some fuck-ups before then. For the Red Sox, Connolly early pitched well. And that was the case really for all Red Sox starters all weekend. I guess you could, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit fucked up. Like, Connolly early was probably their worst. And like, it's hard to say that with confidence because the line was fantastic. 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. Like, he pitched very well. And he goes to 7-5 with the win. As far as the lineup is concerned, and this kind of proves it, like, Sanchez wasn't back at this point. He came back, and I apologize before for fucking delaying on that, but he would return for game 2. And so Escara was on the bench for this one. They go with Austin Wells. But I did not like this defensive alignment in game 1, where, you don't feel great about Rosario at third, right? I mean, he's been the guy that's played third against lefties for the most part this year, so it's nothing new. But it's more Caballero and it's more, I mean, that's a part of it. But Caballero in left, and then to a much lesser extent, Bellinger in center. Like, that's okay, but even for him, you're downgrading at multiple positions. Just the whole Volpe, and I don't mean to go too critical on Volpe, but it does, I mean, again, it's got to be Caballero at short, ideally. Like, I know he's, and I'm fine. If you want to use Caballero around the infield, that's completely okay, right? It's not, because Volpe did, there was actually a fuck up that he did make in this game. That didn't go down as an error, but it was a fuck up by Volpe. But he also made some good defensive plays. Like, he's been all right defensively. It's not like he's been absolutely brutal, but we know it's just the whole thing is fucked up, to be honest, at multiple positions right now. It's not going to be that way for a long time, but the shortstop position will still be one that's in question, even when you do get healthy. And they're going to have to figure that out. So, I guess I'll just say right now, because, I mean, there will be some things I want to call out lineup-wise when I get there, but, just know that, Jason Dominguez has consistently been in right field. Nothing, it worked out this series where, and that's a tricky right field, he wasn't really tested, like, he didn't fuck up, which was good. Like, he wasn't overly tested, but he didn't fuck up too much. In this series, Ben Rice, was on the bench for one game. He's really been struggling. Paul Goldschmidt started out on the bench in the last game, so a little bit of a mix there where you end up seeing, I think Rosario took both DH spots when that did happen, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, let's jump in, and it starts out pretty good. Remember, like, the Yankees are feeling solid coming off of, the offense wasn't great, but they beat Skubal. Like, the vibes were in a pretty good place heading into the series for the Yankees. Wasn't if they, look, the offense hadn't been that great, but again, they were, they found some ways to get victories. And in game 1, it would be Dominguez bailing out Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger, again, it's the road numbers that continue to just be totally befuddling and really bad. Like, again, like, he has such enormous home road splits, and, Bellinger did have some tough luck this series, but again, just want to make mention that, a rare situation where Bellinger does fuck up, but Jason Dominguez bails him out. A very rare runners in scoring position hit for the Yankees. It was again it was more so the Yankees couldn't hit in general compared to specifically runners in score position because, look, in this game, they go 3 for 11, which isn't that bad. Like, it's not great, but it's not that bad. That wasn't really the problem necessarily, as much as you'd like it to be a little bit better. But Dominguez does get an RBI single to give the Yankees a 1-0 lead. First inning, there are some defensive issues. Austin Wells catches interference. And look, I'm not going to go crazy on Wells defensively because believe me, I will on the offensive side. He's an absolute joke as a hitter, like a total joke. But look, I don't like the catch interference, but we've seen it. Like, we've seen Escara do it. I'm not going to make it seem like Austin Wells is the only one, but he does have a catch interference. There was a throwing error on a pickoff attempt by Cam Schlittler, but they come out of it unscathed. So it's okay. Let's see here. Second inning, they do end up in a spot where there is 2-on-2 out and Ben Rice grounds out. Ben Rice, he had grounded out at a certain point in the series, and it may have dated back to the Detroit series, possibly 8 at-bats in a row, which is kind of nuts and just kind of a sign of where things are for Ben Rice. Like, he's struggling right now, no question about it, among others, and that's what hurts, right? When you have, Rice and Bellinger not producing, that's going to make it really tough for a lineup that's already missing a lot of key pieces. Where do we want to go from here? Top of the fourth, Jose Caballero homers. 8th homer of the year, gives the Yankees a 2-0 lead. You're feeling pretty good about where things are at this point. But, Schlittler strikes out the side in the 4th, around a little bit of trouble, for sure, but he's able to get out of it. And then let's go to the bottom of the 5th. This was where things come undone. And look, Schlittler leadoff walk to Yoshida. That's not good. Like, that's on him. Then a Rafaela single. Then he strikes out Abreu looking. Now, during that at-bat, Rosario had a play that he could have made in foul territory and didn't. But hey, no harm, no foul. But I want to make mention of that. Then it was Wilson Contreras. And what sucks is, if it wasn't Rosario at third, as much as Wilson Contreras scalded this ball, to be fair, this was almost 113 miles per hour off the bat. Like, this was hit hard. But it goes through the legs of Amed Rosario and is ruled an error. Like, which you don't always see. Because, like, it didn't hit his glove. Sometimes, like, when it doesn't hit the glove, they give it a hit. They rule an error. And I agree with that. Goes through his legs. Rosario is a definite defensive deficiency. Like, wherever he is. And that's tough. It really is. And so that leads to, and if he, look, this could have been a double play. Like, or at the very least, you're getting an out. Instead, a run scores and you have second and third with 1 out. Now, Jarren Duran hits a sac fly to left to Jose Caballero. The problem here is this. If Cody Bellinger's out there, A, Rafaela may not have even attempted to go home, and B, he's probably thrown out. It was an offline throw by Caballero on a very makeable play. So what does that do? Not only does it tie the game, but it extends the inning. And then it's former Yankee prospect Caleb Durbin, who had a very solid series, and he's been good lately. It was a Fenway Park home run, no doubt. And, look, Yankee Stadium has its own, we know the short porch and right. The Red Sox has a ton of unique sort of nooks and crannies, and the Red Sox seem to be the way. Look, it's their ballpark, so it makes sense, just as it does for the Yankees at their stadium. But it felt like the Red Sox in this series took advantage of that. And I think Caleb, and look, Schlittler deserves blame, right? I don't want to take him off the hook here, but Durbin, 344-foot shot, 91 mile, it was, that was a Boston home run for sure. And it gives the Red Sox a 4-2 lead. And so that poor defense between Rosario and Caballero, and that's problems I have in terms of, especially even more so with Caballero, because that's more avoidable even in terms of him playing out there in the outfield. Just doesn't, he's just not an outfielder. Red Sox take a 4-2 lead. From there, Paul Blackburn, like I said, gives you a scoreless 6th. There was an opportunity, and the Yankees did score in the 7th off of former Yankee Greg Weissert's. Austin Wells actually does single in this inning, so I believe that was the one hit that Austin Wells had in this series. And eventually you get to a point where it is runners on the corners with 1 out, and Paul Goldschmidt gets an RBI ground out to make it 4-3. They bring on the lefty Danny Colomé, and Ben Rice grounds out. And that was, an opportunity to do something. And again, Ben Rice really, his numbers at Fenway Park, he's a Boston guy. I mean, he grew up a Yankee fan, but he's from Boston. His numbers have been horrific at Fenway Park. I think specific to this year, I think was the stat. I don't think it was career. I mean, it could have been, but I think it was specific to 2026. It's like 1 for 23 or something with a bunch of strikeouts. And so, yeah, they bring on, I think look, I know it's unfortunate, but there is a world where we, in terms of postseason, where Ben Rice may not start against a lefty. I mean, I think we have to just be serious about that. With Paul Goldschmidt doing what he's doing, and Giancarlo Stanton is a big if, but if he is doing okay, love Ben Rice, I do, but he hasn't been as good against lefties lately. There's a world where this exists, and to me, I can accept and understand that. And he's made a lot of progress against lefties, no question. He's been one of the best hitters in baseball, but given the Yankee construction, and with the Yankees choosing to not go with Ben Rice at catcher, because if they went with him at catcher, then at that point, I actually would be okay with him. I'd rather have him in there than Wells, but they're not going to go with Rice at catcher, which again is somewhat understandable in terms of defense and everything else, but that's just kind of my thoughts there. Tim Hill gives the Yankees a scoreless 7th. Garrett Whitlock easily shuts them down in the 8th. And the Yankees kind of caught a break. The fact that Whitlock was not available in Game 4 almost led to a Yankee victory. But the former Yankee prospect shuts them down with ease. And then Yuri De Los Santos comes on in the bottom of the 8th. De Los Santos, look, he is a guy that when put into situations that are very low leverage and the Yankees are winning by a lot or losing by a lot, he can give you quality work. But to me, whenever I've seen him in close games, and this would qualify, he just simply doesn't get the job done. And so it was a reminder for me, Yuri De Los Santos, he's a different style pitcher. He's no better than Jake Bird. Yuri De Los Santos, give me Giovanni Cruz. I don't need Yuri De Los Santos. This is a guy that will not be a very consequential member of this bullpen was all said and done. But it was a reminder, fine, he's okay as one of your last men in the pen, but you don't want him pitching in a big spot. Leadoff walk Caleb Durbin, single Anthony Sattler, the former Yankee first-round pick. There are a lot of random former Yankee prospects on this Red Sox roster, all over the place. It's been a thing. Carlos Narvaez sack bunt, error by De Los Santos. If this is fielded cleanly, and he does it the right way, it's second and third, and Narvaez, another former Yank. This is a second and third run situation, but he botches it. He does get Marcelo Meyer to pop out. Meyer would actually go on the IL after this game, I believe. And Ryan Yarbrough comes in too. A tough situation. They pinch hit Eaton for Yoshida, and Eaton is hit by a pitch barely. But still, that's on Yarbrough. You can't do that. Eaton didn't even know that it hit him. It barely grazed him. Makes it 5-3. Then Rafaela gets an RBI ground out on a play that Volpe fucks up. Volpe, this should have been a double play. But the throw is off the mark on what should have been, really a 6-3 double play. And so that gives the Sox a 6-3 lead. And then Aroldis Chapman comes on, does allow a leadoff walk to Volpe. Chisholm grounds out because, of course, Chisholm, in a high leverage situation, typically won't come through except for the rare home run. But I digress. And again, to be fair, it's a tough matchup against Chapman. Caballero singles, and it wouldn't be the last time Caballero would single against Chapman in this series, but then Max Schumann pinch hits for Wells, which makes sense, and Max Schumann flies out. Paul Goldschmidt does get an infield single, but then Ben Rice against the lefty Chapman grounds out to Chapman. Actually, a very nice play by Chapman. That wasn't an easy play. He makes it very frustrating loss, and the defense was horrible. The offense didn't do a whole lot, and Cam Schlittler deserved a better fate. And so when you lose a Schlittler game, and look, that had to feel good for the Red Sox. Schlittler, if you're a Red Sox fan, you got to despise Cam Schlittler, just for a number of different reasons. And so that one hurt. I'm not going to lie. Game 2 and 3, I was bothered by both those games as well, but it was just, the Red Sox were just simply the better team in these games. It wasn't really even up for debate. Will Warren's struggles continue. 7-3 now, which is a better record than he deserves. 5 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks, and 0 strikeouts. Look, Will Warren really, at this point, And I know it's not as if like Garrett Cole has been amazing. It's not as if Carlos Rodón has been amazing. Ryan Weathers has had his struggles. But to be honest with you, I think that Will Warren, if we're doing it just based on, a combination of, seniority and productivity, and I like Will Warren. I do. I think he's going to be a good pitcher in this league. But I think Will Warren probably deserves to be bumped out of the rotation. I don't think he will be. I still think it's going to be Weathers if everything stays equal when Free comes back. But in my opinion now, and it changed, Will Warren's been really bad. Like, strikeout numbers are down. Whip is way up. Like, it's not good. 1.36 whip is not good. And last year's was 1.37. So the numbers are starting, the ERA is less, but I don't know. Some of the other numbers are kind of looking like it did last year. And I don't know. Will Warren is fine. Look, as a number 5 type starter, like, you can do a lot worse. But I'm just saying, he has not been really all that good lately at all. For the Red Sox, Patentoli. 7 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Tolley, Bennett, and Gray really just dominated the Yankees. And Connolly Early was pretty fucking good too. So, yeah. Rosario's DH in this game. I'm trying to think if anything else stands out here. Spencer Jones actually does get the start against the lefty, which I liked from a defensive alignment standpoint. But Spencer Jones, I'll just say it right now because I don't know that I'll get to it. To me, when Trent Grisham is back, which is probably going to be next week, Spencer Jones is going to be sent down. And like, that's just what it should, and that's what it should be and will be. Like, I hate to say it because I want this kid to do well. There's upside here, but, Spencer Jones, and he actually didn't do that bad in this particular game, but a lot of strikeouts in, he struck out 3 times against Sonny Gray. And so, yeah, Spencer Jones likely will be sent down. But anyway, the Red Sox take an early lead, and Peyton Tolley, he killed the Yankees early in the season, but Tolley, he would just get the job done here. Willie Abreu with a 2-out triple, then Wilson Contreras with an RBI single to make it 1-0 Red Sox. I'm going to kind of try to breeze through games 2 and 3 here. A little bit of defensive sloppiness, but self-induced issues by Will Warren. A Connor Wong walk didn't help, but Sung Jae Chang, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, apologies if I'm not, he would get an RBI ground out to make it 2-0. Then Mickey Gasper with an RBI ground out to make it 3-0. There may have been a potential double play on the Gasper one, a 3-6-3 potential. But, I don't know. I don't know if I want to blame Volpe on that one, but it could have been done a little bit better. But anyway, 3-0 Red Sox, and a good job by them making contact. Like, that was key there. Will Warren did not have any strikeout stuff, and that hurt him. Bottom of the third, Wilson Contreras hits a home run at 17th of the year to make it 4-0 Red Sox. And where you get into some funny business is the bottom of the 5th, where, and this is just Wilson Contreras for you, right? And I know, and I feel bad. I know he's dealing with some problems back home in Venezuela, and I hope that everything is okay with him. And right, I want to just say that, but Contreras is a bit of an agitator, and it ends up being where the bench is clear. Where he's hanging over the plate. Warren, it was barely inside. It almost kind of reminded me of Roger Clemens, Manny Ramirez 2003, where it's like, what are we doing here? So to me, that was more on Contreras than anyone else. Nothing crazy happened. Cooler heads prevail. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. It's kind of just a ridiculous situation. Bottom of the 6th, you get, unfortunately, it was a Caleb Durbin double. And this is where I believe Spencer Jones, the ball I think it was where it kind of curved on him. And he doesn't make the play. I'm pretty sure it was this one. Apologies if it wasn't. And it eventually leads to a Connor Wong set fly. Again, just easy against Will Warren. Easy contact, fundamental baseball by the Red Sox. It made things easy. Ryan Yarbrough would come on and finish the inning. There isn't a whole lot to speak of here. Jazz has a 2-on, 2-out situation where he flies out in the 7th. Top of the 8th against former Yankee Tommy Kahnle, you do get a leadoff double by Volpe, which eventually leads to an RBI ground out by Austin Wells. And I believe Austin Wells finally now at the end of the series has 10 RBIs. Finally, at the end of June, just totally insane. Bottom Bottom of the eighth, the Yanks give up a run, a combination of Yarbrough and De Los Santos, and Connor Wong gets an RBI single to make it 6-1, and the Red Sox win by a final score of 6-1. Game 3, Saturday afternoon game, Garrett Cole's struggles in Boston continue. And look, more of the story here is the piss poor offense, but Garrett Cole loses to go to 2-3, 5 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. The final line isn't terrible, and to be honest with you, it's more like the Contreras. It was kind of like the Tiger game with the Colt Keith hit. That was, to me, the Contreras hit in the third. Like, the home runs allowed weren't really terrible pitches, but all to say, Rafael Devers is gone. Like, the star Red Sox players are gone for the most part. And I know Contreras is very good, but Garrett Cole, who hadn't pitched there since 2022. It had been a long time since he pitched in Fenway, and those struggles continue. So hard to ignore that. Jake Bennett pitched very well, had a no-hitter going into the 5th. Peyton Tolley had a no-hitter going into, I should have mentioned that. I think Peyton Tolley had a no-hitter going into the 6th. I got no words. So Bennett goes to 2-3, 6 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Ahmed Rosario back to playing third base. Jazz Chisholm wouldn't start. He would come off the bench in this one. Max Schumann would play center field. We've seen that a little bit lately. Caballero at second. So, leading off, Masataka Yoshida hits his 2nd home run of the season. This was one that was sort of high and away, but Yoshida got to it, pulled it to right center, and the Red Sox take a 1-0 lead. Then in the 2nd, Anthony Siegler, the former first-round pick by the Yankees, of course, hits his first career Major League home run against the Yankees. An opposite field home run over the Bree Monster, 339 feet again. Like, it's tough to kill Cole on this one, but it was right down the middle. When it was a 3-1, that's where it's bad to fall behind a hitter. 3-1 count, and the Red Sox take a 2-0 lead. And the home run ball has really killed Cole against the Red Sox specifically. Bottom of the 3rd, Cole gets into trouble, and he gives Wilson Contreras a meatball in a great place in his red zone. 2-run double. Wilson Contreras, 4-0 Red Sox. And so, yes, Cole settled down, but this is another poor outing by Cole. It's going to take him some time to get back. I don't know that we're ever going to see him to be the guy he was pre-surgery. But the velocity, I do think that he will look better than this, but it might take some time. And that's the sad reality. So the Yankees break up I think it might have been a perfect game. Again, a perfect game, no hitter, whatever the fuck. I mean, it's basically happened in games 2, 3, and 4. Max Schumann hits his first Yankee home run. So there was a world where I wouldn't have wanted to do it, but there was a world where Max Schumann could have won Best Player of the Series. Realistically, that wasn't going to happen, but I guess it could have, depending on how Game 4 ended up going. But he homers, makes it 4-1. Like I said, Paul Blackburn would come in. I guess I should mention a Ben Rice double play in the 6th inning. But yeah, Brent Hedrick would replace Garrett Cole in the 6th. He gets out of it. The best chance the Yankees had was in the 7th. 2 on, no out against Jake Bennett, and he's towards the end of the line, and Jason Dominguez strikes out. I'm just not blown away by what I'm seeing from Jason Dominguez. Look, and I want him to do well. Like I want Spencer Jones to do well, but Dominguez, he's been good as a righty, not that good as a lefty. We know what the defense is. Look, I'm not giving up on Jason Dominguez, but understand that when they are fully healthy, he's not going to be in the mix. That's just what it is. Trent Grisham asserted himself enough where, and I don't love Trent Grisham defensively as a center fielder, but he is a guy that's going to play over Jason Dominguez. That's just what it is. I want to see more from Dominguez, and he's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of run, where Jones is going to get sent down, and all that. Dominguez, on the other hand, look, Grisham coming back probably will take a little bit of time away from Dominguez, but not all that much, I don't think. So anyway, Justin Slayton comes on, and he strikes at Jose Caballero looking, and then he challenges it. That was an emotional challenge by Caballero, but anyway. And then Jazz Chisholm Jr. strikes out as a pinch hitter. And look, that's classic Jazz for you. It just is. I want to like the guy so much, and it's hard for me to. It just really, really is. Bottom of the 7th, it's a combination of Hedrick and Doval getting the job done. Garrett Whitlock, scoreless 8th inning. Paul Blackburn, scoreless. Bottom of the 8th, great play by Volpe on Wilson Contreras. An amazing barehanded play. Top of the ninth, Aroldis Chapman it was a 2-out walk for Bellinger, a nice at-bat for Bellinger, but ultimately Dominguez's first pitch pops out, and the Red Sox win the series. They win Game 3, 4-1. Now let's go to Game 4. This is a long one, folks. For many reasons. 4-game series, Yankees, Red Sox, and just, when you get 4 games swept, I got a lot to say. So, more, this is just, a fucked up series for the Yanks. So, the starter would be Carlos Rodón. Look, it's kind of one of those classic Rodón starts, and it wasn't a bad one. I mean, look, the line is actually pretty good. 5 innings, only 1 hit. It was a big one. 2 runs, none earned. 4 walks is way too much, and 6 strikeouts. Like, Rodón, when he's at his best, he's not going to give up that many hits. But it's just the inefficiency. 96 pitches through 5 innings. Like, I want Rodón going deeper into games, and that has been a bit of a problem, where it feels like Rodón. And look, I'm sure there probably was a start this season where, and I'll check that real quick, where he probably did get you 7 or close to 7. Actually, no, my intuition was correct. The most he's gone is 6 innings. Now, granted, he's given you 6 innings 3 times out of 5, 6, 7, 9 starts. I don't know. Like, again, the numbers are fine. 3.30 ERA, 52 strikeouts and 56 in the 3rd innings, 1.25 whips, a little higher than you'd want, but like, the numbers, it's just, I don't know. I'm not going to make a big deal about this because really, in reality, he probably gave you the 2nd best start to Cam Schlittler, and, it was, when you look at this series, it was, Warren was by far the worst, Cole was number 3, and then Rodón was top 2, right? So, it wasn't bad. I just wish he could have gotten you deeper into the game, because it kind of does have ramifications when it's all said and done. Okay, so here, Jazz Chisholm Jr. leads off the Yankees for the first time in his Yankee career, and what ends up happening? He ends up getting ejected from this game. Now, I'll get to it once we get there, so let's put a pause on that. Oswaldo Cabrera, and good for Oswaldo, he makes his first action in the major leagues since that gruesome leg injury last year in Seattle. I will say, though, unfortunately, and look, it's clear the Yankees only want Oswaldo to face righties. He actually was doing very well as a righty, similar to Dominguez in the minors, but they made it, based on the way they deployed this, they made it very clear that they only want Cabrera against righties. But it was a rough game for Cabrera. That error, the unearned runs by Rodón, that was due to an Oswaldo error. And he didn't do all that much better at the plate. And it's tough because if you're Cabrera, if you want to stay up here, you need to do well with the few opportunities you have. And so just like I said, Jones gets sent down for Grisham. I got to think logically that when McMahon comes back, which will also be around, I think, later this week, the logic would tell you that it would be Oswaldo Cabrera at this point, but he's still got a few games to show himself, and I hope he does. He's such a likable guy. But Paul Goldschmidt will be on the bench for this one, and everything else Rosario at DH against a righty is weird. But here's the other thing I realized with Rosario: he's been a lot better against righties and lefties this year. Like, that is something that I hadn't totally picked up on until recently. Anyway, Sonny Gray was great. He picks up a tough no decision. 7 1/3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, and no strikeouts. He had a no-hitter with 1 out in the 8th inning. Sonny Gray, who, Yankee fans don't like Sonny Gray. I don't like Sonny Gray. And, this is what he did. It's just beyond frustrating. So, let's just jump. Look, this was a good pitcher's duel, but things start to go down in the 4th. 1-out walk to Willie Abreu, which, again, not good. The walks are never good. But Wilson Contreras reaches on an error by Cabrera. And unfortunately, that would have heavy ramifications in terms of not only runs being scored, but pitch count. That probably led to, honestly, at least an extra 20 pitches. He threw 37 pitches at inning Rodón. Rodón makes a very nice play on Romy Gonzalez on a chop ground ball, makes it 2nd and 3rd, 2 out. So Caleb Durbin gets a big 2-run single. And so the Oswaldo Cabrera error does come back to bite in a big way. And Carlos Rodón, again, you throw 37 pitches in an inning. That is not going to get it done. So Could have been worse. Had a chance to really blow it open, but he was able to get Chang to strike out with the bases loaded. So we go to the fifth, where the perfect game ends on a 2-out walk by Ahmed Rosario. No hitter, still intact. And in the top of the sixth is where Jazz Chisholm Jr. is ejected. And look, to be fair to Jazz, the home plate ump, who I thought had just a rough night in general, honestly, just in terms of calling balls and strikes. Jazz took a half swing. Should he have really even offered at it? No, like it was a pitch that was in the dirt. So I would have liked that he wouldn't have, but he does. But to be fair, he really didn't go around. Like when it was live, I kind of thought maybe he did. Regardless, you got to go to the third place ump. If you're the home plate ump, you can't ring him up there. And so Jazz is, they call him out, as far as striking out swinging, and then he gets ejected. And if you're Jazz, you can't, I understand the frustration. I do. But you can't, allow yourself to get, thrown out of the game. So he does, and kind of puts the Yankees in a little bit of a tough spot. I wouldn't really say that necessarily totally affected them negatively as it turned out, but it was unideal. I mean, eventually the Yankees did, lose the DH spot as a result of things. So Volpe comes in. It always seems like Volpe, like even if he doesn't start, whether it be someone gets hurt or whatever, Volpe always seems to find his way into games. So Paul Blackburn comes in, and he gives the Yankees 2 scoreless innings to keep things, where the Yankees can make a comeback. Now, in the 8th is where Rosario breaks up the no-hitter against Sonny Gray, and they take him out immediately. And Guerrero comes in to finish out that 8th. Bottom of the 8th, here is where I'm a little confused. I'm not even mad about it, but David Bednar comes in the 8th. I would have thought that Cruz would have come in there. Right? I mean, Bednar, and look, I'm not going to make a huge deal about it because it's a little bit of second guessing, but I will say it was just strange in the moment too. Like, it wasn't like, Bednar is a guy that you don't normally see in the 8th inning, right? When you're losing. And Bednar ends up giving you a 1-2-3 8th, and he comes back out for the 9th after the Yankees tied up and gave you a good 9th inning as well. We'll get back to that, but I would have thought it would have been Cruz then Bednar, just for the simple fact that Bednar is the closer. Bednar is used to save chances. That's been his thing, right? Going back to his time with the Pirates. Fernando Cruz, as good as he's been, he only has a couple of saves in his entire career. Anyway, top of the 9th, the Yankees find a way to get it done against Aroldis Chapman, and it would be Caballero with a leadoff single again. He got a single against Chapman previously in the series. Still second, once again. I don't know why Caballero, I mean, he was safe and by a decent amount, but still, you cannot risk getting caught stealing there. Anthony Volpe works a walk. So that's where, in a way, Volpe being up instead of Chisholm probably ended up working for the Yankees. This is where things get real interesting. Ben Rice, who actually had a 3-0 count, so it ends up being 3-1. Rice came close to, it wasn't Rice's fault, Chapman threw strikes, and on a 3-1 count, Rice hits a fly ball to the right. Caballero tags to go from second to third, which makes sense. But Abreu totally airmails the throw. This throw needed to go into second base, and it would have been completely fine. The Caballero run meant nothing. It's a 2-run game. The Volpe run was the important one, and it ends up being a disaster for the Red Sox. Abreu airmails it. Caleb Durbin is unable to keep it in the infield. Then Chapman doesn't do a good job backing up, so it goes all the way almost behind the catcher, a little bit to the left. And not only does Caballero score, but Volpe goes all the way to third. So it ends up the whole thing ends up working out for the Yankees. Paul Goldschmidt pinch hits for Dominguez, which was the right call. And give Goldschmidt some credit. It wasn't pretty, but on an 0-2 count, he's able to chop a ground ball to the infield, and Volpe is safe on a fielder's choice. Look, Chang, no one fucked up. Yankees just kind of were fortunate there. But then Chapman does end the inning, strikes out Bellinger looking again. It's been rough for Cody. And then Schumann pinch hits for Jones and strikes out. We go to the bottom of the 9th. The Yankees do some maneuvering as far as the defense, because at that point, Ali Sanchez was the only one left on the bench. And so Bellinger moves from left to right. Schumann goes to center. Rosario goes from DH to left. And now that number 3 Dominguez Goldschmidt spot in the order is occupied by the pitcher, David Bednar. Bednar Gets off to a little bit of a tough start, a bloop single by Contreras, but he gets Romy Gonzalez to hit a double play, and then Durbin to ground out. Nice play by Austin Wells there. Tough play. And so Bednar gives you 2 scoreless innings. He has been really good. And to be honest, in terms of best player in the series, he probably would have been, he was very close to winning it last series, and he was really one of the close ones again in this series. I gave it a Blackburn, but Bednar, for what he did, he's been very good lately. So we go to the top of the 10th, and it's Justin Slayton, not Garrett Whitlock. So the Yankees catch that break, and they do kind of take advantage of it. And Wilyer Abreu fucks up again. Ahmed Rosario gets a single to right on a play that Abreu it would have been a shoestring type catch, but he should have made the play. And to be honest, it sounds like Matt Schumann might have been straying off. There could have been, I would have been pissed. They could have doubled him off second. Anyway, that doesn't happen. Schumann scores. And then Abreu, it's another not so good throw that Connor Wong is unable to come up with, and Rosario goes to second. And that's kind of the big thing there. I always say, it's not about, you have to score 1 run at a bare minimum on the road. Scoring 2 is where it's at least 2. And, again, no, the Yankees' road extra inning struggles continue, but in a different way. Usually it's because they don't score. Here they scored twice. And Oswaldo Cabrera goes sac bunt, which I like it, but I don't like it because Austin Wells was on deck. But luckily, Austin Wells on sort of a check swing, it was kind of a swinging bunt. It's another fielder's choice run for the Yankees, where Slayton goes to home, but Rosario beats it out. So Wells gets lucky, and the Yankees take a 4-2 lead. Then with Caballero up, Wells still second. And again, at this point, runs are still so important as the road team to score as many as you can. And Jose Caballero with a terrible strikeout. It was a full count, and he's swinging at a pitch that was way up and in, and then Volpe grounds out. So really upset with Caballero there, and then it sets the stage for Fernando Cruz in the bottom of the 10th, which, if you're being honest, you're feeling decent about it as a Yankee fan. Cruz has been pitching very well. You have a 2-run lead. I don't think anyone's thinking it's over, but not a bad situation to be in. But it couldn't have gone any worse. Anthony Siegler with the single to start it out, which had you not feeling good. And that was honestly, of all the hits allowed by Cruz, that one, look, sort of a seeing eye through the hole hit by, give him credit. It wasn't such a bad job by Cruz, but then from there it was bad. Yoshida, who I think is kind of a Yankee killer, pinch hits for Wong, and he gets a double, rips it. First pitch, Cody Bellinger does a great job at right. He almost gets Yoshida out at second. Now, if he was able to pull that off, that could have been in some ways like a game-changing play, but wasn't able to make Yoshida's safe. And at that point, you realize, okay, like this is really bad. 4-3 game, second and third no outs, and then Chang sac fly. And that hurts. Chang, number 9 hitter, Cruz has strikeout stuff, and he just gives him an easy pitch to hit a sac fly. And not only does Monasterio, the pinch runner, score, but Yoshida goes to third. And then Jarren Duran, who came in the game earlier as a pinch hitter, he gets the walk-off RBI single to right field. And the Red Sox win 5-4. Just a terrible, terrible loss, and ending a horrible, probably the worst series, up there with the worst series of the year for the New York Yankees, a 4-game sweep at Fenway Park. So now let's set the stage for the series in Yankee Stadium against the Tigers, who they took 2 out of 3 in Detroit against just this past week. The pitching matches are as follows. I think what Detroit did is I think they must have inserted a starter, kind of like what the Yankees did with Elmer Rodriguez, because they had a 4-game set against the Astros where they lost the series 3 out of 4. So where it was looking like maybe they had a shot to do something, they're kind of trending downwards. But here's the thing. Let's talk about the pitching matchups. Casey Mize versus Ryan Weathers is game 1. And look, like this will be tough, although, Weathers has been solid lately, but Mize, the Yankees were able to get it done versus Mize. But look, this is not going to be an easy matchup. But game 2, this is the one. This is the matchup. Skubal versus Schlittler. That's going to be fantastic. And I'm very curious to see what happens there. Like that is, as good as it gets. And then game 3 will be Troy Melton, the righty, who has done well. I mean, the strikeout numbers aren't great, but the whip is awesome and the ERA is good. So, Yankees will have their work cut out for them with that. And that will be a matchup against Will Warren. So look, like, I think that the Yankees are gonna, I know it's back home at Yankee Stadium, which helps the likes of a Cody Bellinger, but I think the Yankees are still gonna struggle to score runs in this series, based on the pitchers they're facing in the current Yankee lineup. So look, I'm hoping the Yankees can win the series. They took 2 out of 3 in Detroit when they faced Skubal, and that series didn't feature Cam Schlittler, but I don't know. Like, we'll see. With the way the Yankees played against the Red Sox, it's hard to feel confident. But anyway, just a brutal series at Fenway. The Red Sox are alive with this 4-game sweep of the Yankees, and now they will head home for a 6-game homestand against AL Central teams, so that should get them right. But really bad stuff for the Yanks, as they are now a game behind the Rays in the American League East, 2 on the loss side. Again, a disastrous and terrible walk-off ending in Boston in Fenway Park, a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Boston Red Sox.